I cannot believe this character ended up on the throne after all this. It's unbelievable how this story's panned out. Hi guys, welcome back to DevTV. My name's Dave and today we are going to be talking about the Game of Thrones end of era really today. Now I think that a lot of people are going to be very upset with how this show ended. So before I go any further, if you haven't seen it, turn the video off because this is going to be full of some crazy spoilers. You have been warned, so see you later. For those of you who stayed, let's crack on. So in this episode, first thing we see is Tyrion walking through King's Landing and he makes his way down into the keep to see if Jaime has escaped with Cersei. And when he gets there, the keep's obviously under a lot of rubble, the entrance, so he manages to climb through a little gap because obviously a small fella, you know what I'm saying, and he ends up getting in there and he sees that Jaime's little metal hand was sticking out through the rubble, and he pulls the bricks away and sure enough there is Jaime and Cersei crushed under all those damn bricks that be falling from the damn ceiling. Now unfortunately I think the show wants you to feel a little bit sad for him, but kind of like I think Cersei deserved to die because she's a bit of a you know what, right? So I think that was, it kind of gives us closure as fans, and it gives the character closure to know that his family is now fully eradicated and he's the only Lannister left, which is kind of sad, right? So following that scene, Daenerys imprisons Tyrion after that because she did say to him that if you go against me, I'll make a bad decision, it'll be your last. So she throws his ass in jail and he gives his hand, he throws the little stamp on his shoulder, he throws it off, right? Then after that, we know Jon tries to talk to Tyrion about what's happened, and Tyrion tries to explain to Jon, look mate, basically what you need to do is go and take this woman out because she's crazy and she be like want to kill everybody everywhere to just basically make herself feel like she's the bee's knees, right? And Daenerys kind of the gripe I have with this episode, right? I'm gonna come back to the story, but the gripe I have is this season was so rushed, it was ridiculous. I feel absolutely robbed as a fan that they pushed this into, basically they took a 12 episode series and halved it into 6. I would have been happier having like 45-50 minute episodes but 12 of them, and having the story stretched out so we can actually see why Daenerys became the way she became. Because in the episode 3 when she's fighting the Long Night, she's gone up to Winterfell to help them fight the Walkers and the Night King, and yet in 2 episodes later she's killing everybody in King's Landing. There is too much of a sharp arc in this character story for me to accept as a fan that this woman has changed that quickly and become this crazy. Now I know it would make sense if we have more episodes, but there's not enough time invested into that story, which is my problem, which I think a lot of people have, right? So back to the story and back to the episode. So Jon decides that he knows that he's got to stab this woman and take her out. So he manages to get past Drogon. Drogon's lying under all that damn rubble and he just moves, and it just scared the shit out of me, I'm not gonna lie. And I thought, oh no, that's just it, you know, how's he gonna get past the dragon? But he just waltzes past. So kind of another kind of thing that I mean, I don't know, can we accept that? I suppose we can, because he has rid the dragons before, hasn't he, Jon? So they're kind of used to him, right? So he goes upstairs, he sees Daenerys at the throne. They chat about what she chats to him about what she wants to do, and they embrace. And when they embrace, you kind of see Jon unsheathing his sword on the right, and he stabs her in the stomach and he kills her essentially. And then Drogon comes into the picture and he sees what's happened, and he's looking at Jon, he's looking at Daenerys, and he's like, you know what? And you see him charge up with a fire, and boom, he blows the fire at the Iron Throne, and he melts the throne. He melts the throne down into nothing. Kind of like in Lord of the Rings where they melt when the Gollum falls into the lava with the ring and the ring melts. Drogon melts the throne so there's no throne left. And that's what happens there. Then the story in the episode, it jumps, right? It jumps to this kind of season, this kind of jumps a time frame. I don't know how long it jumps, but we see everyone gathered in the dragon pit where they were before, where Cersei and everyone met when they brought them the White Walkers to convince them to fight for the living. But now we're here with these all different characters, you know, all these kind of, the last remaining characters have gathered in this area. And little Edmure, he makes a guest appearance. So Edmure survived all the way to the end, which is quite funny. But what happens there is Tyrion gets brought out by Grey Worm, and Grey Worm tells them that Jon's in prison because of what he did to Daenerys, and the Unsullied are unhappy. Tyrion is here also because he's committed treason and they want him punished as well. So they decide what they're gonna do with him. And in actual fact, what they decide is what happens, who the next king should be. And long story short, they decide that Bran is the one that ends up on the throne. I cannot believe this character ended up on the throne after all this. It's unbelievable how this story's panned out. In hindsight, when you look back, Bran basically put everybody where he wanted to actually get the throne. And if there's a scene where he's with Littlefingers, when Littlefingers talks to him about chaos, and Bran says, chaos is a ladder, and you have to climb the ladder to get to the top of chaos. And funnily enough, who was the best climber in Game of Thrones? It was Bran. He was climbing that tower that he got shoved out of. So with that being said, Bran ends up on the throne, right? There's not really a throne, he's in his chair. Cool, right? They have a small council. Tyrion becomes the Hand. Now, this is another thing. If they're trying to build a new world, why is Braun on the council? Braun is a sellsword. Essentially, he is a bad guy. Yet they give him the Master of Coin. It doesn't make sense. Why would you want to build a new world with good people but add this guy into the small council? He's a baddie. He's talking about rebuilding brothels over sewage pipes because he feels it should be made important. So I don't know. I don't know why that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it went. Arya goes off to see what's west of Westeros, as she promised that she would. Sansa becomes the Queen in the North. Yes, she does. And Jon gets sent to the Wall. Now, Jon gets sent to the Wall, and he goes there and he meets Tormund. And Tormund doesn't say anything. There's not even a word out of this guy's mouth, right? It's ridiculous. And then he sees Ghost, which I suppose is a nice touch, but it's not enough, man. There's not enough. For me, if Jon was my favorite character, I am a sucker for a goody two-shoes in these shows and these films, and I felt that the guy's story, I'm so fobbed off by the way this guy's story ended. And then it ends actually with him walking beyond the Wall with Tormund and the rest of the wildlings, or the free folk we should call them, and he just goes off with them, and it ends there. I'm like, I know the show starts with people going beyond the Wall and it ends with people going beyond the Wall, but I just don't know, and I cannot accept that is how it ends, you know. And I just don't think, it's so rushed. I'm so frustrated by this episode. I love Game of Thrones overall, but this season, even the last season, they were both very rushed seasons. They could have made so much more out of it. But we now know the conclusion to Game of Thrones. It is absolutely heartbreaking that it's ended, and in a kind of twisted way. The fact this episode and this season was rushed the way it was, I didn't get to invest too much time into this story, I don't feel so heartaching. Whereas if it was 12 episodes and I invested a lot of my time into these characters again, it would have been painful for it to end, no matter how. But because it was so rushed, it felt like it was like, alright, okay, it's like saying goodbye to a relative. Yeah, okay, see you later on, bye. And it's just like, no, it's like, that's not right. That's my take on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave it a thumbs up, and I'll see you lot in the next one. Peace!